you were a pretty competitive angler when you first got to Natal. I think you calmed down after a while, but jeepers, you were hard to keep up with, I'll tell you initially. I think you were competing against trout and against the man and against everything.
Yes, but I wasn't competing for prizes or for cash or for anything like that.
No.
Yes, I was competitive. The object of going fishing is to catch fish. And if you don't catch fish, then you've got to have a good hard look at yourself and find out why. But it doesn't make me unhappy. But I will admit that it makes me an awful lot happier if I have a good day.
But as I remember you, you're a man who's caught more big fish, I think, than anybody else I know. How did you manage to do this, John?
I think positive thinking helps a lot. I think if you know you're going to catch a fish, very often you do catch fish.
So you think apart from tackle and apart from technique, you have to have confidence in yourself if you want to catch good fish. And you've got to be competitive.
100%.
You brought this out very well in your book, John, Introducing Fly Fishing in South Africa. That book, I think, did a lot for many, many people.
Surprisingly, yes.
Why do you say surprisingly?
Well, it was written well inside 3 weeks, which is not a long time to write a book. And, of course, the price was right.
The price was excellent. I thought the content was very good as well. You were thinking of rewriting that book. Presumably, you would like to bring in some changes.
Oh, an awful lot of changes, yes.
You feel some of it's now outdated.
A lot of it is very much outdated.
But thinking about that book, John, you know, when you look back over your fly fishing lifetime, you must have seen a tremendous amount of change. What would you say was the biggest single event that in fly fishing that pertains to tackle?
One must go for the carbon fibre rod.
But we got along pretty well with glass, didn't we?
We got on extremely well.
I see you've got some bamboo sticks here still.
Yeah. Oh, those are for old time's sake.
And what about lines? You know, there have been some tremendous changes in lines. Do you think that these changes have been momentous?
I can remember quite clearly when I used to use the old Kingfisher braided silk tapered line, which had to be mollycoddled, which had to be dried out after every outing, which had to be dressed if you wanted it to float, the weight forward, the sinking tip, the sinking head, the slow sinker, the intermediate lines. It does make life an awful deed.
A difficult question. If you had to advise a young person, or a beginner, shall I say, not a young person, on what outfit to buy so that he would be equipped to fish both rivers and lakes, what would you say?
Well, I would go for an 8.5 foot carbon fibre rod, AFTMA 6.
Yeah, you're taking wind into account.
Yes, it's not so good on the rivers. It's a bit heavy.
It's a bit heavy. Right. John, you started your fly fishing at the CPS, that's the Cape Piscatorial Society in Cape Town.
Yes.
When was this?
1960, early 1964.
I think probably it's true to say that you've become the most famous member the CPS has had, outside of ACH Harrison.
Notorious, I think, isn't it?
Notorious is a very good description. John, your writings in the Cape Piscatorial Society, this little magazine here, really did a lot, I think, to help bring fly fishing to the popular place that it now holds. Your writing, particularly your letters to ACH Harrison, which I assume were letters that were written to the Piscator for publication and weren't actual letters to ACH Harrison. What about ACH Harrison? He obviously played a big role in your life, John.
I heard he did.
Tremendous guy. What other people would you say played an equally important role?
Well, Mark McCarrick has got to be foremost among these chaps. He was one of the... In fact, I think he was the first person who I ever saw use a nymph on the rivers down in the cliffs in the Western Cape. And he knew his river. There is no doubt about the fact that Mark McCarrick when I met him, was an artist with a rod.
Mm.
That man could drop a fly on a 50-cent piece if he wanted to, and he did very often. There are fishermen who would catch more fish than Mark, I must admit, but Mark was different in this respect, that even then he was getting on a bit. He was steeped in his own background of fishing. In other words, he was not an innovator.
He still must probably be regarded as one of the men who've contributed a milestone in South African fly fishing.
Without question.
Dry fly or fast water.
Without question.
Right.
And he was also someone who had a genuine enthusiasm for teaching tyros, young or old alike. He seemed to spend his time trying to find other people to put on the river and get them to catch fish. And I was one of those.
We're on contentious subjects at the moment, so let me just name one more, and that is competition in fly fishing. What do you think about competitions in fly fishing?
Not very much.
Are you for or against them? Presumably
I'm against
them from your
I'm against them.
altogether.
Yeah, altogether. It just makes a mockery of the whole thing.
But do you still have fairly traditional views about fly fishing?
Yes, I do. I have to admit.
John, you've been associated with a number of fly fishing clubs in South Africa. The Cape Piscatorial Society, you made a tremendous impact on that club. You still continue to do so. I think you made an even bigger impact on the Natal Fly Fishers Club. You were the founder of that club, and in many senses, the driving force that got it off the ground when we first started it.
And then, of course, there's the FFA, which is, from what I can see, is actually incredible the way these chaps have started this.
That's a very energetic club.
Didn't give them a chance when they started. I didn't say so, but in my own mind, I didn't give them a chance. And these boys have worked absolutely.
They paid you quite a compliment in offering you honorary life membership. You turned that down?
Yeah. I turned it down because I didn't really think what I know I didn't earn it. And I think an accolade of that sort should be earned. And really, I had given very little to that club. I'd only been to one meeting. I feel that an accolade of that sort should be worked for and worked hard for.
Listen, I'm going to ask you a straight question here, and you can answer indirectly. What was the nicest river you fished in this country?
It has to be the small one, down in the Cape.
You really enjoyed that.
Oh, I loved it.
I'm going to just ask one more question, and then I think we'll finish off this bottle of wine together.
Well, hurry up, please.
What about still waters?
Oh, now we come up to Natal, don't we? And that's all your fault. Still waters? Well, Mick Kimber's Old Dam.
John, thank you very, very much indeed for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege talking to you. But it's been an even greater one fishing with you and enjoying the camaraderie that we've had as fly fishermen over the last 22 years. John, thanks very much indeed. I can remember a day of Kimber's Dam where we fished all day. I think probably it was in the winter or just before winter. And by the end of the day, we'd seen nothing. And then you finally picked up a fish. And in a forward cast, I managed to wrap my line around yours and you burst off. Do you remember that?
Yes, I'll never forget it. It was a good fish too.
Oh, I've seen you in better moons, I can tell you. John, I want to tell you this, though, that you've played a tremendous role in my fly fishing life, and I hope will continue to do so.
If I can make it any worse, I will.
Well, I've got to the stage now where I've got to stop myself out fishing you. John, so you were a very competitive angler.
Very.
You disliked being outfished.
It's like being up.
Not that it happened very often.
Often enough.
You were set to win, and most times I think you did. I outfished you, I think,
Once, 3 times from you.
about 200 times.
And it's what's the expression that
I know the word you're trying to think of.
What is it? Tell me.
He's got to think of it myself.